the potential for two different headline-grabbing debuts has been overshadowed by a surprise win and a race ban. Let's have a bit of a talk about the Italian Grand Prix. We'll look at how the race was won before going into some of the talking points of the event and rounding off by talking about the championship implications. In terms of the race itself, Lando Norris managed to make it 7 from 7 pole position starts that don't lead to him leading at the end of the first lap, as Oscar Piastri made a very bold move through De La Roja to take the lead. The McLarens seemed to have been able to take off, though Charles Leclerc managed to slot himself between the two, and when it came to the first round of pit stops, Leclerc undercut. He asked why they were doing an undercut, which means that the inevitable actual Ferrari master plan that did work for once was sort of given away early on. When the McLaren's pit, it ended up being to the benefit of McLaren, which meant that Ferrari was backed into a corner where essentially it had to be a one-stop strategy. It was the only way they were going to get the best result in front of their home fans. Meanwhile, Red Bull had opted for a two-stop by changing their hards for more hards, and Mercedes were also sticking to the two-stop strategy. From there, we ended up seeing a continued push from McLaren down this two-stop route, and yeah, Red Bull struggled to make the most of having started on the hards and using a second set of the hard tyres, with Verstappen managing to get past George Russell, though George Russell lost extra time because of the fact that he had to have a front wing change due to him hitting one of the bollards because he decided to take the escape road through the first chicane on the first lap. Now, Verstappen also had a slow stop. He had problems with the right rear of the car, didn't come off properly during the first pit stop. But at the same time, he was nearly 15 seconds off the back of Lewis Hamilton. So, in the end, whilst P6 is making the most out of a bad situation, it's not what Red Bull had in mind. What Ferrari probably didn't have in mind was the kind of advantage that they would have once the final round of pit stops were done. Charles Leclerc was able to hold on, but the graining got massive in those final few laps, and Oscar Piastri was able to start catching Leclerc to the tune of about a second and a half a lap come the end of the race. But it was still too little too late. Charles Leclerc held off for another emotional win in front of the Tifosi. Second win of the season, and he won essentially his 2 home races because he won Monaco and he won Monza. Then it was Piastri, and birthday boy Carlos Sainz did not manage to become a smooth operator on the podium. Lando Norris managed to get past with a few laps left, and he was still 7 seconds clear of Lewis Hamilton, who will be taking this place next year at the Scuderia. So in terms of the other stories, we could probably talk about the two people who had big occasions coming into the weekend. Franco Colapinto was starting right down towards the back of the grid, qualified 18th, but managed to get quite a good race out of the Grand Prix. He finished 12th, just between Fernando Alonso and Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo having picked up a 5-second, then a 10-second penalty. 5-second penalty for an incident with Nico Hülkenberg on the first lap, and then a 10-second penalty because when he came in to serve the penalty, one of his crew accidentally touched the front wing. So, these are just a couple of little points. Alex Albon got points. He got P9. Kevin Magnussen got 10th. We'll talk about Magnussen in a moment. But it's a good debut for Colapinto, and it shows that the kid does have potential. Granted, it is Monza. It's the least kind of tricky and cornery track on the calendar. But, hey, the other person who was making some kind of headline-grabbing debut this weekend had to go even worse. Andrea Kimi Antonelli was seemingly setting pace faster than Lewis Hamilton in FP1 before he overdrove it through Alboreto, the Parabolica, and sent the car into the wall. A hefty repair bill, but it didn't matter because the next day Mercedes officially announced him as teammate to George Russell for next year. Now, it does sound like some people are on the what the terminally online call copium, because of the fact that he crashed, and they're like, well, actually, despite only having done a timed lap and 90% of a second one, he has great potential and he really impressed us. But let's be honest, this was just a PR exercise sending him out in FP1. They knew that they wanted to have him. He's been doing lots of running in the 2022 car. There are videos all over the internet of him doing it. He's being trained by Mick Schumacher, who is the sort of test and reserve driver for Mercedes, who, regardless of what you think of him, he's an F2 champion. He's champion in various other series. It's not just the name. He is a good driver. There's no way that he would have gotten into F1 just on the name, especially in the super license era. Dan Ticketum's rant about rigged engines disregarded or whatever. But yeah, they both had good weekends, and Antonelli has shown that he is somebody to keep an eye on next season. He's also shown that he's somebody that we need to be patient with. Colapinto, on the other hand, in his race debut, has now made Valtteri Bottas the 22nd place driver in a 20-car championship. Yeah, I wonder what the race's Valtteri Bottas sympathy corner is looking like this week. But let's round up the story of this 20-car grid with Car 20, Kevin Magnussen, who will become the first F1 driver in 12 years since his former teammate Romain Grosjean to get a race ban. He's the first F1 driver to pick up a race ban in F1 since the penalty point system was introduced. He's hit the 12-point threshold because of a 10-second penalty that he picked up due to contact with Pierre Gasly. Now, Magnussen is annoyed about this. He's like, why do I get 10 seconds when Ricciardo already got 5 for the incident he had with Hulkenberg? And to a degree, I can kind of understand it. At the same time, 5-second and 10-second penalties in F1 are often quite interchangeable. You can give something a 5-second penalty one weekend, it could get a 10-second the next. And the nature of it being first lap, the kind of hectic drama, the context is everything in these kinds of situations. It's not just simply, oh, this, then this, as a result of that. I have done some stewarding which has been in different kinds of series before, obviously not in the real world of motorsport, but these rules are usually taken from the real world of motorsport, and context is sometimes quite important to why something has happened. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to say. I predicted that a F1 driver would get a race ban at some point this season, and then when K-Mag hit 10 out of 12, I was like, K-Mag's going to get a race ban, but I wasn't wishing for it. At the very least, he doesn't have to go to Baku again, which, yeah, I don't know. Getting an extra week off might help him set up whatever he's going to do for next season. Maybe he goes over to WEC. I'm kind of hoping that, because I have a prediction that one F1 driver will leave the sport and go over to WEC. But hey, he'll be back in Singapore. He could get a 10-second penalty every race to the end of the season and then only have to miss going to Abu Dhabi. But yeah, that's a bit extreme of me to say. Anyways, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.